What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hannah Horror here today, and on today's original versus remake, we're talking about Friday the 13th. Now, what's really interesting about this video, guys, and I've got to be honest, is I'm still, till this very second, unsure about which one I'm going to choose. It's interesting because this is not a remake that exactly does what the first movie did, so it's going to be really interesting. This is truly going to be a preference, or which movie I think is just done better, what have you. So let's talk about the original 1980 Friday the 13th. I want to start by saying this. I really think that Friday the 13th is a movie that belongs to Tom Savini. Now, of course, Sean came up with the idea and Victor wrote the script, and credit to those guys 100%. But I do think that this movie without Tom Savini would have been much more unsuccessful had they just got some Joe Schmo to try to do this movie. This movie really relied heavy on the special effects. That's what this movie was. The series is more or less predicated on is great horror, kills, and special effects. So Tom Savini doing this movie is just as important into the picture as Sean and Victor, in my humble opinion. You know, when you look at the original 1980 Friday the 13th, of course, it's clearly a flawed film. It's not a very well-made film. I don't think anybody would say that Sean Cunningham is a fantastic director, or that the script was, you know, one of the greatest scripts you'll ever read. For all intents and purposes, Friday the 13th would be a horror movie that you would pick up at the rental shelf at a Blockbuster or a mom-and-pop video store in the mid to late 80s. But it got that push from Paramount because of the success of Halloween. I don't think anybody will deny that. Especially not Victor or Sean, because they said, let's rip off Halloween. Now, the idea of Friday the 13th, with it being a whodunit film, I'm not ever against a good whodunit film. But what's interesting about Friday the 13th was there was really no way to guess who done it, because you never saw Pamela until she shows up in the movie. And once she shows up, I remember watching the movie, the first time I saw her show up on screen, I'm like, okay, well, obviously this is the person doing all this stuff. I'm not saying it takes away so much, but you would have thought maybe they would have shown Pamela Voorhees in the movie, shown her face maybe, throughout the movie a couple times to let you really know, okay, this could be a contender. Is it this person or is it this person? Kind of the way Scream did it. Now, that's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying it necessarily takes away from the film, but I was more so a fan of when you actually get to see people in the movie that one of them is the killer. A couple hokey things about the 1980 movie is at the end when they chop Pamela's head off, you can see the toothpicks, and if you watched on Blu-ray, you can see them even better. It's kind of funny, but you really can't be too harsh on it. This is the heyday of practical special horror effects. There's a lot of things I can nitpick about the movie. I'll try to avoid that because I could be here all day. As I said, this is not a extremely well-made film, but at the end of the day, it is a great little slasher horror movie that started a franchise that we all know and love till this day and has endured for years and years. I mean, Friday the 13th, for goodness sake. I think the strongest part of the film is, in fact, the ending with Pamela Voorhees. I just thought she was fantastic in the movie. And not to mention Jason popping out of the water. Is it a dream? Is it not? I don't think it was a dream. I don't think it could have been, because he shows up in the rest of the movie, so I think Jason really did pop out of the water. Okay, so let's talk about the 2009 Friday the 13th. This is a movie, to me, that kind of wraps 1, 2, and 3 in a bow all in one movie. I use that as a relative term, in a bow. Platinum Dunes doesn't exactly have my graces. They've done a lot of things that I'm just not a huge fan of, and Friday the 13th 2009, I don't know, I think it was probably one of their better attempts. It had a really long opening sequence. I remember you think the movie's about to get started and then everybody starts dying and then the title sequence kicks in, and I think the opening sequence is probably my favorite part out of the whole movie. You know, Derek Mears, I thought, was a really good Jason. I didn't see Derek as watching the movies and saying, okay, I'm gonna be just like Kane in part 7, or I'm gonna be just like Ted White in part 4. He was just kind of Derek Mears in the suit, and then you see what the guy looks like. He's a big, strong dude. When it comes to the movie, I think the strongest thing about this movie is, in fact, Derek Mears' performance as Jason. It's interesting because in this movie, I felt like they really tried to take some characters and make them really mean something and have deeper layers to it, but I really just couldn't help but not care a whole lot. I know that sounds bad, and I know that I should, but I think it's because of how silly and ridiculous some of the other characters are. It's hard to take the serious characters seriously. Now, with this being a Friday the 13th movie, I don't need that to be the end-all be-all of really caring about the characters in the movie. My most important thing about this movie is Jason. How is he portrayed? Is he a force? And is he unstoppable? And Derek Mears does do a really good job in that. They got the right guy to do this movie. I really try to understand the reasoning behind Jason holding a prisoner in this movie. It just seems so not 80s Jason, I guess. I've come to terms with that over the years, although I'm still not a massive fan of that, but I don't know. There's a lot of little things about this movie that kind of just get on my nerves a little bit, but there's also things that I just really enjoy. I love the scene where they're riding in the boat, and Jason hits the guy in the head with an arrow, and then the girl gets hit by the boat, and then Jason stabs her and lifts her head up. There's some really good stuff, and seeing Jason in the woods, some really cool shots in my opinion. Some things in the Friday the 13th remake look really good. So when deciding which one I prefer more, it's tough because I'm battling between the nostalgia and then the great 80ness of the original with Tom Savini and then the cast, and then the remake, which has the benefits of today's technology and better special effects and better cameras and things like that. And I gotta be honest, I get a lot of enjoyment out of both, I really do. But if I had to just pick which one I prefer a little bit more, I think that 80s nostalgia comes out a little bit more for me with that original Friday the 13th. But it's close, guys. It's like this. I really think they're both fun movies. So I'm gonna give it to the original Friday the 13th in this case, but as I said, both are really fun, and I can't wait to see which one you guys are gonna choose over the two. I want to preface that this is just my opinion at which one I enjoy a little bit more. I'm not saying one is better than the other. That's for everybody to discuss. We all have opinions, and we all see movies a little bit differently. So please let me know in the comments section, guys, which one you prefer, the original or the remake for the Friday the 13th movies, and also give me a suggestion on a remake versus original that you'd like to see me cover. This is Christian Hanna Horror. Please be sure to check the description. I've got the new Patreon with all kinds of great new tiers. You can become a patron on the channel, and you can also check out the Teespring, where I've got really cool t-shirt designs where you can rock Christian Hanna merch wherever you go. Thank you guys for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.